Hello and welcome to another episode of Frame and Reference. I'm your host, Kenny McMillan, and you're listening to episode 111 with cinematographer Brandon Cox. Enjoy.
Have you been watching anything cool recently?
Like series or movie or
Either.
well, I saw Indiana Jones on I just went Monday and I didn't read any reviews or any, and I'm like Raiders of the Lost Ark is like one of my favorite movies, and I was like, screw it. I had no expectations going in, and I actually really liked the movie. And I haven't read any reviews. I don't know what people are saying. But I don't really care because I love that series. I didn't like the fourth one, so that's why I didn't go in with any expectations. So I went in and I was like, well, you know what? Harrison Ford's 80 years old. There's not really much anywhere else you're going to take that story, and this was pretty cool. And they had a great cast, and it was and James Mangold, man, he did a good job, you know. I'm friends with Fade and Papa Michael, so it's like I was happy. I was what I wanted out of it. I was entertained. It was escapism. It was exactly what I wanted from the movie. So I was happy.
I had seen, I think online movie critics, I mean, fuck, they satirized it in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, like it was the worst then. It's definitely worse now. Like everyone has their voices amplified so loud, and most of the time they're being far too like they see agendas where they don't exist, or they think that they're a filmmaker themselves, even though they've never touched a camera or written a page. So in that regard, I've seen both sides. I've seen, oh, this is fantastic, I love this, and like, why the fuck is it this? I'm just like, just watch a movie. Like, I went and saw Asteroid City.
Fucking movie, man. That's exactly right. And what were you saying about Asteroid City? I'm sorry.
Oh no, trust me, I fucking just ramble. So no one's here to listen to me. But I saw Asteroid City, and same thing. I came out of that, and I was like, that was really fun.
Yeah, I thought it was great. It was fun. It's a Wes Anderson movie. That's what you're gonna get. You know what you're gonna get with a Wes Anderson movie. You know visually what it's gonna look like. You know what actors are probably gonna be there, who he's gonna have. You know he's gonna have the kitschy dialogue. You know he's gonna have some weird, awkward moments. It's just, that's his style. That's what he does. And I don't know what more you're going to want from it. It's like, what do you want?
According to Letterboxd, I'm an idiot.
As another site, I've never even touched. I won't even go near there because I can't. I just can't. Like the two sites I just try to like stay away from are Rotten Tomatoes and Letterboxd. I just don't even bother.
Well, at least with Letterboxd, there is like nuanced review. Like sometimes things, it's very rare, not super rare, but it's not as common as like Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb for things to get review bombed.
Yeah,
a Letterboxd, it's like there's mostly people who saw it and like care about curating a thoughtful thing, but every once in a while people's like, oh, it sucked. But I got Letterboxd just because I was like, how many movies have I seen? So I was just using it to like
using it for that. I got you
to log it. Yeah, I've never written a review.
I've never reviewed, but yeah, I've seen that, and then I want to go watch Fleabag because of Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and I want to watch her work and see more what she's done, and I really what was the other thing? I mean, there's so many things I have to just catch up on. I mean, yeah, I saw like Guardians 3, and I saw Asteroid City.
That was a gut punch.
Yeah. Oh man, Guardians was a big gut punch, man. That was like, and I've worked with Bautista, so I was happy that like more of Drax's character, and because I mean I've been away. I was working in Colombia, so I missed a bunch of the movies that had started to come out. So I was like, oh, I got to start catching up and seeing what's going on. I haven't seen John Wick 4 yet, so
John Wick 4 is definitely simultaneously the most and least John Wick. Like, it is, I mean, it's clearly just the like Wild West stunt spectacular. The plot is very thin, but
well, I mean, most of the Wick movies are, but you're not going there for like, usually Keanu Reeves kicks some ass, man.
and it's 3 hours of that. I mean, it is 1
3 hours. Oh,
but
man,
it's like 2.5. but out of nowhere, like all the first three, like the first one had a kind of a different cinematography than 2 and 3. 2 and 3 felt very much like the stunt team was shooting it.
Yeah.
And then 4 feels like they were like, all right, last hurrah, let's like really, I mean, there's like Kurosawa references and stuff in it that are just on framing, and you're like, okay, this, all right, we're stepping it up just a touch. That's cool.
That's beautiful. Well, I definitely want to see it then. I have to check it out. It was on the plane when I was coming back, and I was like, I don't want to watch this on the plane.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wait to watch it here. I got my roommate and I have this 130-inch screen with the little projector. So we try to do it right. So
yeah. The how do you feel about the Barbenheimer release? Are you double featuring it, or are you gonna go separately?
Oh yeah, is that like a thing? I've been like reading about that. So like you basically go see Barbie and then you go see Oppenheimer, the Barbenheimer thing. I don't know. I mean, it'd kind of be a pretty interesting way to watch it. You have this bubblegum popcorny candy, toy that little girls have played with in the 80s and for how many years. And then you go see this serious film about the guy who pretty much invented the atom bomb and could almost destroy the world. Yeah.
We're going to do it the other way. We're going Oppenheimer first, lunch, palate cleanser, Barbie, end on a higher note.
That's actually probably a better way to do it, I think. I mean, Oppenheimer looks incredible. I can't wait to see that movie. I mean, I love Chris Nolan, and I love Hoyte. Hoyte Van Hoyte. Yeah. He's incredible. You ever interviewed him? Have you had a chance?
No, I did run into him. So I ran into, I don't know what movie he was prepping, but I ran into him last year at Cinegear when it was still at the
Paramount.
No, when it was in the LA Convention Center.
Oh yeah, I haven't been in like a few years because of COVID, obviously.
So yeah, this year it was at the Paramount. So, and that was like, I still need to write like a recap article about that, because no one fucking was there for the gear. Everyone was there to just see everyone and like hug and high five, and like the gear was in the background. People were like, oh yeah, whatever. Anyway, and speak back to friendship, and it was a very fun vibe. But it was hilarious that I was supposed to do like for ProVideo Coalition, I was supposed to write these like recap or do these interviews and stuff. And I was like, no one wants to talk about this. Everyone wants to hang out. So I don't have to write that article. Like I wasn't tasked with writing it, but I want to anyway. Anyway, but so he was looking at like these little lenses.
Okay.
Just like tiny ones, like from Nisi or one of those Laowa, one of those companies, one of those Chinese lens companies. And so I saw him standing over there, and I was like standing with my camera guy, and I was like, I have to go say hi. And so I walk over, and there, his like handler or whatever sees me coming and is just like, fuck. And it's clear. I mean, he's not wearing his name tag. Like he's trying.
He's probably wearing his all black with the scarf.
No. Oh, he's got his scarf.
Like,
yep.
And his hair looks like he hasn't washed it in like a week or whatever.
Yeah, he was not trying to hide, but so I just like really quickly was like, hey, I shouldn't say the rest. Well, so I introduced myself, and I was like, if you want to do it, I'd love to have you on the podcast. And he goes, sure, send me an email. And then he gives me his email, and I'm not going to say any more than that, but his email was hilarious.
That's awesome.
I can't give any hints, but I was like, really?
That's awesome. No.
But yeah, but I've
on, man. He's great. I met him a couple years. Actually, I met him at the last Cinegear I was at. I ran into Kayvon from Camtech, and I hadn't seen him in a while. And he was with Linus, and he was with Hoyte. And he's like, dude, have you met these guys? I'm like, no, but I know who they are. And he's like, yeah, Brandon Cox, this guy. And I was like, hey, how are you?
Right.
And Linus was like, oh yeah, great. How are you? I just like, well, you guys are important. You go do your thing.
Speaking of Hoyte and that whole thing, is I've seen, this is like an interesting thought. Today I was reading this, of course it's a fucking Reddit thread, but like everyone arguing about the modern look of films and how everyone likes to blame CGI, and I'm like, that's not the argument you think you're taking. But a lot of people are talking about how when we went from digital from film, now that there's a difference in look. And I was wondering what your take is on that, because I certainly have an opinion that I get in trouble for.
So basically, so movies shifting from film to digital, different look from that, or
yeah, and also the look of modern. Do you have an opinion on the look of modern film, and maybe do you watch films and go, "Ooh, I would have done that differently," or like, "Oh, when you're creating a look for a film, is there a look you're going for?" Because certainly, when I did B Unit on Detective Night, did you know that I was the B Unit?
I didn't know that.
Oh,
That's awesome.
on Independence, yeah, I was the second unit director, DP.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But I was like just shooting it, like I didn't have any lights or I was just like getting pickups, and I was like, I had a couple lights, but I was like, I don't know if this is gonna, like, I've done this myself and it doesn't come out looking good. And then we saw it in the theater and I was like, oh no, that looks fine. So clearly there's like something to do with the colorist or processing that I can't put my finger on. But
Yeah.
big roundabout way of asking, do you have a personal opinion on film versus digital? Because everyone just loves that question. But also, your looks.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I starting on film. I love film. That's what I learned on, and then being in the, when I got out of school, I went right into music videos, and I was still shooting 35. And then I watched videos lose their budgets, and I watched, which I used to call the producer's camera, the Canon 5D, come in and try to look, you don't even need lights. You can just do that. I'm like, dude, let me explain something to you. Have you ever heard of reversal film? They're like, yeah. I said, there's like 4 stops of latitude with reversal film. I said, that camera has 4 stops of latitude. That camera's a piece of shit. It's like, you need to take stills with it, and that's about it. Or if you want to do web content, it's great. But don't try to sell me on something where you don't want to pay for lights. It's not going to work like that. And, then I watched the red come in and all that. Yeah. Has it? Look, there's a place for both of them, right? And I believe in both of them. I think wanting to be a cinematographer, I think is extremely important you learn on film, because you'll understand exposure and, all of these types of things that technically you should already know, rather than going the other way from video to digital. But has the look of films changed with digital? Yes. I feel like right now there's this lack of not wanting to light, or this lack of like, everything has to be like crazy dark to the point where you can't see it, which I don't think that, to me, in my aesthetic, I'm not a fan of that. I like dark and I like contrast, but I also want to be able to, like, I don't want to be squinting at it and looking like, what? Well, they're like, oh, look how dark it is. It's cool. It's like, just because it's dark doesn't mean it's contrasty. It's just fucking dark and you can't see anything.
Right.
If you want to you can make a film dark, but yet, like, look at Seven, right?
Right.
Like, Seven's a dark film in tone, content, and in cinematography, but it's still lit.
It's legible too.
Exactly. And there's 18 different fucking post versions of that movie floating around on disc. So whenever Fincher decides to do the 4K version, we'll go back to the original.
The Criterion, yeah.
Exactly. But that film is still lit well. And it's still, even though it's dark, and they did, the CCE process, to get bleached, the ENR process, all of that stuff had to be done to it photochemically, but it's still well lit. So I there's this thing, and I don't want to get into like this movie, that movie, or any of that. I mean, I could talk to you offline about that stuff, but
yeah, sure.
It's I don't want to point any fingers or anything, but there are some films and TV shows where I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but you're being lazy. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I mean, I'm old school like that, but I think people should still, just because they want to make it dark and make it, I still think, and there was that whole thing, I guess, where everybody was bagging on movies that are like teal and orange, and
right.
They took on that aesthetic, and then movies started to be all low contrast, and nobody wanted to color anything, and that was the thing. And then Now it's like some desaturation. Now it's a little more oversaturation. It's like, you know, you got to find what works for you. I tend to always go to the movies I love, you know, and I mean, like, I love Blade Runner, so I can't make every movie look like Blade Runner or be as, you know, but I still, even though I shoot digital, I still try to make it feel like film, if that makes sense. You know,
Well, that was actually going to be my follow-up question, because in this thread that I was reading, which Oppenheimer's what brought me there, because people were discussing Oppenheimer and then, you know, complaining about other films, and they're like, "Oh, you know,"
are they saying Oppenheimer doesn't look like film?
No, they're saying Oppenheimer looks amazing. Chris Nolan's amazing. Film is the best medium. No one can make it. No one can make digital look like film. And you know, they were giving it film a little too much credit, in my opinion.
Interesting. Okay.
But I wanted to know what your opinion was on what is the film look to you.
I don't.
Because if you want to make digital look like film, you got to be able to, you know, articulate.
I mean, so all right. I know I talk with Fraser every now and then, you know, online, and I know his color is really real, David Cole, and David was talking to me about when he did Batman, the Batman. I was like, what was the process that you did, because it just took on a really filmic look, and he's told me, well, you know, Greg and I found this process in London where we could take what we colored, and then we could spit it out a negative, make a print, and then come back, then color that, then scan that print back in. So you're messing with digital and film, and you're going back, and they see, he's like, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's an incredible process. It's very, very expensive.
Sure.
But hold on a second. Let me get this. Hold on 1 second. Oh gosh. Yeah, there we go. Sorry about that. There was call number one. So when you're and Dune did the same thing. You did the same thing for Dune 1 and 2. So that is very cool. Obviously, there's money, no object there. I think, you know, and everything Deakins does seems to have a filmic look to me. Like, Deakins has a way of doing stuff that looks filmic. I think it's in the way you light it and the way you color it, and, you know, adding a little bit of grain to it. And I think what, you know, Greg's doing is really interesting. I mean, there's that new film he did with Gareth Edwards. Is that his name?
Sure. Yeah.
The creator.
Yes, or something with a C. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just reading they shot that on the FX3.
So I
was like,
I really need to do an interview about that, because he said that in one podcast. He was like, I like the FX3. I'd like to shoot a movie with it.
Yeah.
And then just my journalist brain pinged off, because everyone took that clip and then have turned around and been like, he shot the creator exclusively on the FX3. And I'm like, I bet he used that camera. I don't know if that was his.
So I text David 2 days ago, and he's on vacation. He's coloring it now. And I said, I need to have a serious talk with you about what camera that movie was shot on. Because he'll tell me straight up. And the moment I find out, I'll tell you.
Yeah, text me. Yeah, because
that just seems. I saw a trailer during Indiana Jones, and here's the thing about the trailer. The trailer did not hold up visually in the IMAX screen. Now, I don't know whether it looks great online, but when I watched it big, it didn't look so good. It broke up a lot. So I'm curious. I think he used it for certain scenes, but when I see that trailer, man, it looks like Area 65 to me. It looks like, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But it just looks like, I got to find out from that one. That one's one where I'm kind of like, really? You use that camera? Okay.
Well, I mean, it's a great camera. I certainly, Sony makes dope sensors. Sony makes most sensors. But it's just the online contingent of Sony fanboys is loud, and the second they got a hold of the creator was shot on the FX3, it was just like, it destroyed internet discourse.
And then what's going to happen? Everybody's going to want to go do exactly what he did, and then they're not going to be able to achieve it, and then it's going to be like, it's which so the whole large format thing as well. So anyway.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, the FX6 is or FX3 is full frame.
Yeah.
I think it's just an A7. It's an A7 in a sturdier body. It doesn't even have, I think it doesn't do true 24p, and it doesn't have shutter angle.
Oh my God.
It's just an A7. It's an A7 in a different body. It's an A7 with a fan.
I mean, yeah, I can't, and it's, I know it's like, that big, and then you're going to have a
phone.
I mean, when you build it out, it's going to be like that big, I guess. You have batteries and however you, I don't know.
Steadicam Op's fucking thrilled.
Oh, great. He's like, yeah, it's great. Now, you interviewed Oren, right?
Who?
Oren Soffer?
No, not yet.
So Oren was the co-DP on that.
Yeah, you need like 5 DPs I'd love to talk to, but I don't know.
I know a lot of people. I'll definitely hook them up your ways. It's cool.
Hell yeah.
That's easy. So anyway, yeah.
But yeah. So Oren was co-DP because I saw he shot it and then it was.
Yeah, Greg shot it. I guess Oren like co-DP. Like Greg's been doing that now. Like he when he did Dune 1, he brought on Kate Arismondi, who was relatively, kind of obscure, and he just was like, yeah, you're going to shoot my second unit. And I was like, wow, good for her, man. That's pretty good leg up on that one,
Yeah, I mean, it's the opposite of that. That's actually pretty cool because, at a certain point, Greg is going to get, I called him Grieg for so long because I'm a fucking idiot, but Greg's going to get every job. Yeah, but he's going to get every job. He's shot some of the most beautiful stuff on the planet, and if a script ever comes his way, he's going to get it. So the fact that he's bringing on lesser known people to co-DP or be second unit is probably a huge leg up for those people that I'm sure he's vetting, obviously. But
I mean,
that's a cool thing.
He did, when he did The Mandalorian. I mean, he basically took Baz, his operator, and he just was like, "Here, I'm going to do a couple of these, and then you take over." And
yeah.
Cool for him. So that's good.
Did you start as a second unit guy, because I was checking out your IMDb briefly, and it's like there's a lot of camera and lighting jumping around before it starts just going cinematographer.
Yeah, I mean, I basically hopefully you get the right Brandon Cox, because I've been getting some weird credits pop up lately, and I was like, I didn't work on that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's weird. I'm Brandon Cox number 3 to whatever. But I mean, you've probably seen my picture on there or whatever. Yeah. I started I was a lot of the films I worked on at AFI. So, I worked on a lot of crew people stuff, and we all crewed each other's films and whatnot. But I started in grip electric camera, moved around. But when I got really extremely lucky because one of my classmates was from Norway, and he'd already been a bit established in the industry in Europe, and he came to America and he wanted to learn narrative filmmaking. He wanted to go to AFI, but his main goal, he really wanted to get music videos and commercials. And Daniel Pearl was like his idol. That was like who he emulated his style off of. And he left AFI because AFI was a 2-year program. He left AFI, he went back to Europe, got a lot of videos. Then he's like, when I get an agent, I want to come back, and I'd love for you to work with me. And I was like, yeah, sure. So long story short, he comes back, he calls me, he needs a place to stay. So yeah, crash with me. He stayed with me for like a month, found a place to live. He calls me a week later and he's like, hey, B Cox, you want to come operate on this music video? I just got, of course, I'm right. I'm like, 2 weeks out of AFI. I'm like, yeah, let's go.
Right.
And so I go do that. And he takes me to Company 3. I meet Dave Hussey. I meet Stefan Sonnefeld. I start meeting all these rock star colorists who, are legends now. I learned that whole deal on how to, work with the colorist, how the director works in a music video setting. And then he gets another job. I go work with him on that. He gets another job. He's like, hey, you're going to sit with this director and you're going to shoot this stuff for me. And they just gave me a list. And through that process, I garnered enough credits as the cinematographer, second unit guy, true to per se. And I basically was able to get an agent with that footage that he gave me. And then there you go. So I know how to do everybody's job, and I've done all those jobs, but like when it came professionally to like get out of school and start doing it, I was really, really lucky on how that happened.
Gotcha. Yeah, because it does feel like quite a sharp trajectory from, I guess I didn't realize you went to AFI, but I've interviewed a lot of AFI people. That seems like a very, the film school discussion always seems to come up in general, not just on this podcast, but AFI people always seem to consistently have like the most postgraduate success. And I think it's just, it must just come down to the structure of their education, right?
It does, because when I was there, and he left right after I left, then he came back, the main professor. Now he just came back. I think he's like the tenure big dude now, is Professor Bill Dill, and he's ASD and all that. But he is incredible. He's probably one of the most incredible teachers I've ever had. And basically would just, could structurally break down a scene, break down movies, break down lighting, break down composition, just like, and nobody, I've just never had a teacher like that. And, when you work alongside for 2 years with 28 other individuals or 27 other individuals can do the same thing that you could do, and you feed off of each other and you learn from each other, and they're all from all over the world, and so you've got people from Korea, India, China, South America, Europe, whatever. And everybody's got a different aesthetic, but you all learn from each other. The funny thing is, I don't think AFI is the greatest directing school per se, but as far as cinematography, editing, production design, it's first rate. I mean, if you look up the amount of DPs that have come out of that school, Matthew Lee, Robert Elswit, Janusz Kaminski, Wally Pfister. I mean, you could just keep going. Rachel Morrison. It's incredible.
Probably a third or more of the people I've interviewed that have
Robert
letters.
Richardson.
Yeah, anyone who has letters after their name. Yeah,
exactly. But it's the way the program's structured. I mean, it's very, very intensive, and it's immersive in the sense that it's setting you up to work in that system. And the thing I like about it is, their equipment, I guess, or you would say checkout or whatever, is kind of minimal, because it's trying to teach you that, like, hey, you're not always going to be able to go to your school and get stuff. You have to go out and go rent stuff, which is like, when you go to these private art schools or these private schools that have all this, they're like, oh, look at all this gear we have. But it's like,
right.
That's great, but in the real world, nobody's going to open up the door and say, hey, look at all this gear we have. It's not going to work like that. You got to rent the shit, Right. So in that sense, AFI is teaching you to engage with vendors, engage with these people. That's how I met Panavision. It was like, I've had a 20-year relationship with that camera house. I had a really strong relationship with Technicolor because we were assigned a lab, and that was when we were still on film. But I met so many people through that process. So AFI, they churn out people, man. They really do.
Yeah, it's always been fascinating to hear that, because I think they're singular in their maybe not. I'm sure there's other schools that do it that way. Maybe NIFA, but your USC, UCLA style school is probably not much. That was about to be bad English. It's probably not unlike what I experienced at Arizona State, except ASU's film school started 2 years before I got there and had no budget. Now they've got a crazy budget. But like when you're talking about, look at all this gear we had, they had a DVX and they were like, y'all get to fight over that.
Right.
And then at one point they got that 5D and everyone had to fight.
Then it was like, we're going,
someone get the 50.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Oh, that's all we have. Oh, okay. Never mind. It's on the camera, but yeah, it's they don't really have any cameras there. You had to go out and rent your camera. I mean, they had, and how that program's changed now too is, I don't know now, but I remember when I was there, just how the industry changed for your thesis films. I think out of everybody's, I think there was like 20 some odd films, or I don't know, 20 or 30 films, whatever it was. And out of all those films, I think 20, if there were 28, I think 26 or 25 were all film, and there were like 2 that were digital. Now I'm sure like 2 are on film and the rest are on digital, you know?
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, it just goes to show. But the cameras that the school had, because it was through, they had like the Sony editing center or whatever, whereas the Sony F900s. I mean, and those things,
Oh, really?
those things were just tanks, you know. But I
The old Star Wars Episode 1 camera.
yeah, exactly. So I never used it, but you know, some people did, and you know, they made it look great. And yeah, I shot mine on 16, so that was my senior. I was on 16, yeah.
So how did you leave an AFI? What got you into the track of kind of shooting? You know, I'm a big action fan, but you seem to have this lexicon. You have a body of work that includes
I'll take
a
the
lot.
lexicon. Oh,
Just
just
I'm using all my big words today. Of like, you know, lower budget blockbuster. I don't know how best to describe it. Like the you know, you've got Batista, Bruce Willis, and not Adrian Brody, but
oh, I wish Adrian, bro, that'd be great.
no, was for like, what am I thinking? Marauder, because I had just watched
Adrian Grenier, yeah.
Grenier, yeah. So you got these huge stars, and then what is, you can tell, like, it's not like a shit budget, but it's certainly a low budget. But you made it look good. Like that film, I want to get into that film a little bit, but
I appreciate that. Well, we'll see. All right, so how I started, after I got AFI, I got into music videos, and then a classmate of mine from my art school, because I went to art school in Savannah College of Art and Design. A classmate of mine came out. He went to AFI for directing, and then he quit. And then he's from India, and he met who was, I think there was a producer named Bharat Shah, who was like one of the biggest Bollywood producers at the time. And he somehow got connected to him, and he found this script about this. And you know, back then it was like 2006. It was about a gay Indian man living in Hollywood, and it's based on a novel, and it was sort of his experience in the nightlife in Hollywood or whatever. We made that film on 35. It really didn't do anything, but I made a feature, right?
Yeah.
So that helped, and then that propelled me, and I got The Collector, which is a horror movie. The Collector, horror movie I did with Marcus Dunstan, and Patrick Melton. You know this one, The Collector?
Hold on. Who was the main character? The main character was a stuntman, wasn't he?
No, well, I don't know. Josh Stewart was the main character. I don't know if Josh was a stuntman or not.
No, that wasn't him. I remember. Sorry, I derailed everything. I used to play hockey with a stuntman, and I remember he. This would have been about that time. This would have been like 2009.
It came out in 2009. So maybe he was the collector. Maybe
he was the collector, and he had a mask on, right?
Yeah. What was his name? Yeah, because he had a look guys.
And there was a guy. Poster's a guy like tying up his mask, right, in the back. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So I used to play hockey with that stuntman.
That's awesome. Yeah, he did. Well, he did a gnarly fall for us, a stair fall, which was freaky. And then also that was where I met Zoe Bell, the famous Tarantino. She did a fall. She did it like a few times, which was really freaky. But anyway, right. I don't want to get off the course. So from getting that got me more into features. And so I was floating around and trying to get another feature. And my agents got me a hold of this project with this director, Scott Mann. And he had this film called Bus 657. And it was through Randall Emmett and George Furlow, the EFO people. And they said, hey, you know, check this out. And by the way, Robert De Niro is going to be in this movie, and we're trying to get Dave Bautista and Jeffrey Dean Morgan. This is around 2014. And I really was, you know, looking for something to, you know, go to another level and
get real looking good.
Yeah, exactly. And at the time I went and did a deep dive on these Emmett Furlow movies, and not to sort of, you know, poo-poo on the other ones. I just didn't really think the look of those films what was gone, you know, previous before I did one. I just they felt very, you know, they did a good job, but I just felt that they could,
you saw how you could make it exactly elevated.
Exactly. So I immediately was like, all right, well, we're going to shoot anamorphic. We're going to make it look like a bigger movie, and we're going to do something with it. So I brought all of that. There was a lot of fights of not wanting to shoot anamorphic, but
Why for?
I, I don't. They basically wanted to take the same camera package producers did
Oh, okay.
and say, oh yeah, here, just use this. I'm like, well, no, I don't want to use that. I don't shoot with those lenses. I don't want to shoot that camera. And no, I want
Right.
to do that. And it was a fight, and Scott and I fought on it, fought the producers hard on it. We won. And ever since that film, I felt that that was going to be my sort of staple for that level type of movie. I'm going to bring, you're not given a lot of time to make that movie.
Right.
Other films, and you gotta get what you can when because sometimes, okay, we gotta have this actor for 2 days, and you've got to rearrange your schedule just to shoot their stuff, and then all that sort of thing. But to answer your question with those films, yeah, I mean, I wanted to bring something to it visually that could be, all of the things I love, like Lethal Weapon 2 and Tony Scott movies, and movies from the 80s and 90s that I love, and just sort of give it a spin and my sort of take on it, and do what I love, So that's why I tried to bring action. Was always in my DNA. I always loved action movies. So being able to shoot action movies, it's like, wow, it's such a pleasure and an honor to be able to do that, because they're fun. I mean, I don't get to do what let's say Extraction 2 is done, but that's Sam Hargrove's working on fucking all cylinders and kicking some butt, man.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it's like it's the dream, because in college they're like, you're not going to make don't make a fucking action film. Write a drama that you can film. Stop.
Right.
And then you go off and do it. But what I kind of wanted to get into with this was, the films look, higher budget than they are.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Which is, anyone can do that. But given the fact that you guys don't have a lot of time, I'm very interested in how you're able to light these scenes and what your lighting techniques are to raise the bar on that production value in the time allotted, how you're able to work so efficiently.
It's funny. I was very similar conversation like a week or so ago with a friend of mine was asking me this. Most of these movies, like, okay, so Bus 657, I think that was 19 days, and it was 17 principal to, I think it was like 2 stunt days or pickup days, whatever. And then from there, the days were just decreasing. And so I very quickly learned that I have to learn how to shoot with 2 cameras, multiple cameras, and I have to learn how to light fast and good enough that I can get by and make these things work. Because there's no time to tweak. There's no time to be precious over anything. Just because you don't have the time. You're on, it's run and gun the whole time. So what I did was for 10 years, from 2000 and it was like 2000, when did I get out of school? 2004, 2014, 2012, whatever. All I did was music videos and a few features in there. But in that time, I'm basically taking the speed of which I had to work on a music video and bring it to that. So I learned I have this ability to walk onto a set, look at it, and immediately, like Rain Man, can know exactly where I'm going to put the lights, the cameras, and then I can do a really quick turnaround, because I try to do this light to space, not the face thing. Mm-hmm. So if actors fall within the space of the lights, and if they're out of light in the light, that's fine. Because don't get me wrong, it's not like I'm not going to have any lights on set. I do, but I try to do it in a way that it works and it's good. I can't make it great because I just need more time, and maybe it is great. I don't know. I'm doing it to a point that it works aesthetically for the movie. It looks good and we can move quickly. And so I've got to be able to light that thing really fast. And when I need to turn around, if we finish one set, when I need to turn around, I'm talking like 10 minutes. 12 minutes. I got to turn around, not 45 minutes, you know, and you won't finish. And so I've been able to, you know, use larger sources or, you know, give myself like, hey, just give me a little more time, just like this. And then once we go, we're going to go. So at the beginning, you know, we'll have like pre-calls, or we'll get in and be like, I'll be up in an hour and 30 and we'll go. So it's, and then obviously when you need to come in and on close-ups and whatnot, I'll bring some other sources in to help out and just to fill out the scene. But that's been my general approach pretty much for the last, you know, 8 years on all of these movies, is that. And as I've been able to get budgets increased and time, I've been able to at least finesse lighting a little more and slow down. So I've appreciated that, because I've noticed when I get a little more time, just a little more breathing room, my work elevates to a different level. And I'm trying.
You don't say.
I'm trying to get that all the time. So that's the goal. But yeah, that's to answer your question. That's been sort of the run and gun, run with your fucking pants off and light and go, shoot. You know.
So what is your lighting package? I'm just using Marauders as an example because that's when we initially scheduled a couple months ago. I immediately watched that. That was like the first one that was available for free.
Cool.
So I was just like, boom. So usually like when they're in like the bank, for instance, that all looks very unnatural, but it still looks not lit in a pedestrian sense, but like I could tell, okay, you've lit that. But like, so for using that as an example, like what were your lighting setups for in the bank maybe?
Which bank robbery is it? The very first one?
Yeah, let's go with the first one, because that one looks pretty good.
The second one, which was like in the wooded sort of bank, and then the third one was where the robbers were they met resistance from Chris Maloney.
Yeah.
So I either one, I can go to either one of them.
Actually, that first one, and now that I'm thinking about it, that last one too, actually are both pretty good.
So the first one was it was like the lobby of a building.
And everything's gold. Yeah.
Everything was golden, right? So I remember I shot some par cans into the ceiling, and then there was a big door entrance, and I think I had a few 9 lights out the window, and I papered the window. So I was just using that push that way, and then using all that golden light and bouncing up into the ceiling. And that was really it. And if I needed to come in with the special, we walked around a 4x bounce, and I think I had a 1K or 2K and made like a book light out of it. And my gaffer on that, he just finished a movie with me, Russell Faust, who's incredible. He normally works with Wan Mi. His last name's escaping me right now, but he shoots for Joe Carnahan. He's a really talented DP. And Russ just finished a movie with Dante Spinati and Barry Levinson. So Russ is like an incredible gaffer, and I shot that in Cincinnati. But that was the sort of approach on that bank robbery scene. So we did it that way. And then the next one, the bigger one, there's these gigantic large windows in the back of that. That was an old bus terminal or train terminal, I think it was. And it was actually used as a bank in Rain Man, when Tom Cruise goes in and is trying to find out who owns the trust of his family, right? Because he was sort of duped out of his inheritance from his dad.
Right.
And so that's like a really, historical building in downtown Cincinnati. And so we turned it into a bank, and I had these large windows, and I think I had 2 lifts back there, and I had, I think it was an 18K going through that way. And then, maybe 2 18s. I can't remember. I remember there was one. I don't remember if there's another. And then there was 2 levels to that place, so I could actually put lights up there and then shine them down. And I think Russ also took a couple 4Ks and 9Ks and banged them into the ceiling again, just to get a base ambience of everything. And then from there, there were little rooms offset that I could just push lights here and there. And then he would, I remember bouncing a lot of light for that show. And then we would walk around in Image 80. Nobody uses those anymore, but there was no LEDs back then.
Right.
So there were no sky panels. There was no tubes.
Dude, the tubes.
Kino flow, man. That's what you had. That was it, bro. No, there's no stairs, man. You wanted something blue, you had to go get a fucking gel, put it on there, and watch your stop just go drop away. So it was I was still using a lot of tungsten and Kino flows and HMI. So that was, I remember dancing around a Kino flow and dancing around an Image 80 and always softening it for that scene. So, and always having I always have like soft key light, hard back edge, and just sort of rolled with that whole thing.
Yeah.
So any sort of shot we would be with, if a guy was shooting the gun, I'd key from one side and back edge from the other, whereas aesthetic, if it worked aesthetically for the shot. But I remember that specifically, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like younger, students or younger filmmakers would be amazed at how fucking big those Image 80s were. Like, they look ridiculous. Looking back on them now, they look ridiculous.
No, they look, and they're heavy. God, those things were heavy. They're just big lights, I mean, it's a big array of 4-foot Kinos, but I think it's like 12 of them or something.
Yeah.
You had to you had to make them bicolor, and like you had to have tungsten daylight, or you could do it all daylight or all tungsten. It's like, dude, they have no idea how what we had to do back in the day. It's like, now they're like, oh, you want a 2800? Yeah, here you go. All right, there it is.
Yeah.
They have the ease of all that, where it was really like, oh, we have to switch all the tubes. Hold on a second. That's going to take 10 minutes. Oh, we're going to take all the tubes out, put in the daylight tubes. Oh, yeah, that was fun times.
I had now instead of an Image 80, not that I ever owned one, but I got the Intellatech Mega Light Cloth. It's like a 4.5 by 3.5 foot blanket.
Oh,
bicolor blanket. So it folds into a 1x1 square you can chuck in your backpack. You can put it in a briefcase if you want, and not really the ballast, but
I mean, lights are. I mean, I didn't really start using LEDs until Escape Plan 2, which I did in 2017. It was one of my different gaffer I worked with. I was like, listen, man, you really need to try using these sky panels. And I had a bad experience with LEDs. Like, I got the wrong ones and they flickered, and I was like,
oh, they used to be dog shit.
Yeah, they used to be awful. And then, so I was very against LEDs. And then it took another gaffer to really convince me when I saw what a sky panel could do. And then what, not a Thera, but there was another
Quasar.
Quasar, that was it. And the Quasars, we had a bunch of Quasars. We had them all on the dimmer and the iPad. And it was just his early doings with these lights. But it was really, really fun to get into your brain. You're like, okay, these lights can do that. Now, how else can you use these lights? And now, also to answer the question earlier, LEDs are a huge part of my lighting gear now. It's like I try to carry a 360, at least 4 60s, 2 or 3 30s, S30s. They're all Airy sky panels for everybody. And then obviously tubes, it's there. And then I'll do a small tungsten package of, a couple 2Ks, some 1Ks, smaller units, and then HMIs, so 1.8, some 4Ks, maybe 9K. If I need an 18K, I'll take it, but I'll try to kind of stick it in that. And then that's really it, And then, the Aperture makes all these little 1x1s, and all those. I love those things, man. Those things MCs are incredible. Those lights are amazing.
Yeah, the MCs are dope. The Aperture, same thing with their sound division, Deity. Their apps are great.
Yeah,
like the light, you just control the one that's cool about like the MCs or some of their blankets are like you can take a photo of a color and it'll just make that color.
Then it goes. I mean, it's so intuitive and smart. I had a friend that worked at Aperture. He's since left, but when I was doing a movie last year in Puerto Rico, which hasn't come out yet, it's in post right now. It'll be out. I don't know, either the end of this year or beginning of next year. When I know, I'll let you know. But he sent me their. I think it was their. It was very similar to what you have. That like blanket, like it's like a. I don't know, it's like 2x or 4x4. I don't know how big it is, but it unfolds out and you can put it in a frame, or you can, tape it on a wall or however you want.
Is it blue?
No, it's a black back with white front, and it's got LEDs. And then it has a little frame, and you can put it in a little box, and you can hold it around or put it on a stand, and it's DMXable, and I think it's called what's it called? I forget. It'll come to me. The
Amaran.
Amaran.
Oh, it's the Amaran. Okay.
22 FX22 or something.
Yeah,
I used the hell out of that light, and it was so versatile and so quick and fast, and it's powerful. Like, there are lights that are really highly powered, but just, again, I don't want to get off the tangent, but just
no, this is the Tangent Podcast, so go for it.
what I'm saying, just the power of these lights now, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And I also use these Lux lights, which look like 9 lights, but they're LED, and they're powerful. But the great thing about all these lights is you can plug them into the wall. I mean, if you told me you could do that, 10, 15 years ago, gaffers would look at you, you're crazy. There's no way. And now it's just, that's the thing. It's really amazing, and it's also they're fast. And that's the other thing. Always needing the time, like I'm always talking about, having time, saving time. You got a big light, and you could just massively cover, an area quickly, and you get a light that you don't have to run miles of cable for. Why not? It's great. So yeah. I've been trying to always change it up and give these movies a look, but that basic package of what I listed off is that's become the sort of staple for me right now.
At Cinegear, Aperture and Nanlux / Nanlite, depending on which distribution you get it from, Aperture has a 2400 watt LED that basically, it's more powerful than an M18. It was so fun. They banged it into the side of a building, and I was probably standing 60 yards away getting a solid key. And I was just like, what the fuck? I mean, it's enormous. It's not like something that the average person would buy. But they had that in a 16, and then Nanlux has a 1200 that's an M8 or something like that.
Yeah, I was using the movie. I just completed my my dimmer board op had some lights that she brought, and I was using the Nanlux. The Nanlite Forza.
The Forza.
Those things were great. I never even used those. It was funny. My gaffer Russ was just like, I don't know about those. I was like, no, dude, Nanlite, they make some good stuff. Well, you'll be surprised. And by the time he was like, man, I think I'm gonna probably purchase a couple of those Nanlites. And now he's like a complete convert now. So it's cool because you get to. I love always being introduced to a new light from somebody, because you're always very hesitant, but then when you use it in an application that, you're like, well, I know another light I could use to do that. But when you use a different one, or one you haven't used it for, it's like, oh, wow, well, I'm going to try that, next time, so it's always fun in that sense to learn a new tool for the tool bag, or, for say. So man, LEDs are incredible. They change the game tremendously. And I always love, I was bummed. I was on my last week when Cinegear was going on, and I was seeing all the updates. And I was like, damn it. Oh, man, I want to see all this new stuff. But at the same time, I had to finish my movie. So
yeah. Cream Source. Cream Source makes really good lights too.
Man, those guys are good. Cream Source lights are so good.
Yeah.
I mean, they're heavy, but they're beautiful lights.
Punchy. What was I going to say? The one that I was going to suggest. The tool that I added to my toolkit that changed my game completely, which is going to sound so dumb, is just it's dependent on LEDs, but it's dependent on certain LEDs, and that is the ability to meter an XY coordinate from a light. So you get a sun coming in, you just meter it, type those numbers into the back of the LED fixture, and it's the exact same light. It's not even like, it's close enough. You know, you meter it and you get 5600 or whatever, and you type 5600 in the back of the light. That might not be real. That might, you know, and you don't even know if the light's giving off that number. What you put these little numbers in, and it's exactly the same instantly. So good.
That's so scary. It's, you know, it's these lights are so intuitive now, and just by doing that, what you said, it's you're getting the same color quality. And
so, you know, light will come from outside where it's like it's bouncing off the grass, it's bouncing off buildings, and so there's like a little bit of color pollution.
Yeah.
And that's what the XY coordinates fix, because it's not directly on the Planckian curve. It's, you know, somewhere just adjacent.
That's absolutely crazy. You know, that's insane. Wow.
Yeah, that was a big one for me. And I got those Kino Flow. Have you used the Kino Flow LEDs?
No, I haven't.
So they were way too late to the game, but they were spending their time wisely, because I've gotten 100 TLCI off of their lights.
Really?
Like they're perfect. I mean, they're literally perfect. And they're not as punchy as a sky panel, but the quality is far higher. Like I can send you the
I'd love to see
scans I did.
You know, Flo's coming back with something, man, because I've had many conversations with gaffers and filmmakers about, I remember Kino Flows, and then we, you know, would talk about how I would use Kino Flows, and it's funny enough to bring up Kino Flows. All right, so in Marauders, there's a scene where the cops pull up, and the two dudes that are trying to rob the money that the robbers hid in that one abandoned warehouse. They come outside, it's raining, the guy's like, put your hands up, and there's that whole thing, and that was like, the way I staged that was, I couldn't get a balloon light, I couldn't get any light in the air like big enough. So I looked at Russ and I said, well, we got four bank Kino Flows, right? And he said, yeah. I said, well, just get some pipe and hang it on the edge of the lift and just put it about so high, and we got a softbox.
Right.
It's like, as ridiculous as that sounds, I think that's going to work. And then the key grip was a little like, oh, I was like, dude, it's four bank Kino Flows. It's not going to pull the lift down, man. Are you kidding me? It doesn't weigh anything.
Right.
So we put it up there. We had the rain machine, because, you know, there's rain in that. We made it rain in that entire movie. Which was
Raid's cool. Raid is cinematic. Fuck Phil.
And that's what I told Steven, the director. I mean, he comes to me 2 days before we're about to shoot. We were going to only make it rain in like a couple scenes. He's like, all right, so listen, Beacocks, it's going to rain the entire movie. I'm like, okay, it's going to look cool. It's just going to suck to shoot in, but I'm down. Let's go. They did it in 7. That I was like, always like, what's 7? You know?
Right.
So, yeah, of course. But so we did it, and I like the way it looks, so it worked out. But then again, you know, it's like there's that big homage to Kino Flow. It's always coming back.
Yeah. Well, so the cool thing about them is no matter what fixture you get from them, it's all the same LEDs and all the same drivers. So you never have to worry about like differences in quality or anything. It's just all about like workflow, you know? But at least on my Diva lights, well, they're all the same. So what I just fucking said that. There's camera LUTs built in. So you can tell the light, ooh, I'm shooting Venice, I'm shooting DXL, I'm shooting Alexa, and it won't create a color that is outside the color gamut of your camera. And it'll also shift the white balance so that it is what the camera is expecting. So if you put, you know, tungsten, whatever, it shifts the light to the camera's spec, and so that it looks exactly correct versus, I guess, the other way around, trying to match the camera to the light.
Sure. So it's almost recognizing the color sides of the camera of how it perceives, you know, like a magenta shift or a green shift or a tungsten.
Right.
That's intuitive. Well, yeah, look, man, I mean, I know they took their time and they were a little late to the game, but maybe they're going to get their rise again. So
I just want them to sponsor the podcast.
Yes, I want Kino Flow to sponsor the podcast. I used many Kino Flows back in the day. It's my favorite light.
And Astera, I got run down by the Astera guy at NAB a couple years ago, and he's like, hey, man, I'm a big fan. And I was like, of what? And he goes, your podcast, I've read all your articles. And he started listing off things I had written. And I was like,
really?
Fuck, he actually did read. Yeah, Astera guys are cool.
Yeah, no, dude, Sarah, it's funny. My gaffer on the last one, the movie I just completed, Land of Grace. Yeah, he was like, "Are you sure you're not getting kickback from Astera?" I said, "No, why?" He's like, "Because we got fucking 80 of them here, man." I'm like, "Well, I gotta light a city street, man. This is what it calls for, a mixed color temperature, what we're trying to do." And he's like, "I just like the way you do it. We're just, we'll put one in storefronts and try to incorporate it into the film, and so it doesn't look like we're making a music video, but it just looks like it's we're in a third world country. He just wanted to try to give it that mixed color temperature, man on fire, city of God type feel. So it works. But yeah, that was
that's actually
incredible.
Well, and every single DP every single DP I've interviewed on this fucking podcast uses the Astera tubes. So
they're incredible. I mean, you can make a light any color you want in a matter of seconds. It's, if you can think of it, it's there. Yeah. And the fact that it has that intuitive, the Roscoe or Lee lighting, or
right.
You can just it's this, and I've got like three fluorescent colors that I always use. I know the numbers now. It's because I've been using them so much. Yeah. I'm like, make it a 60, make it a 130, make it that, and then I'm like, surprise me. That's my new thing. Just surprise me. Yeah. And I'll be like, a little less, a little this.
What, this is a good question. See, I got to get them to sponsor the podcast, because then I can just make this I change the final questions up every season. So, but anyway, right. What do you use the Asteras for? Because I think this would actually be valuable for like younger filmmakers who... Sure. Because tube lights are pretty accessible. Amaran makes one, and Aperture makes one. Yeah. What do you use those for, and what don't you use those for?
Like tube lights? Depending on where the location is. I mean, it's funny. I'll use them sometimes as key lights. Like I'll have a guy on this. Like for example, we were doing a lot of stuff where I was in Colombia, South America, and there's it's a military movie, and so I had these pretty big areas of jungle that I had to light, pretty thick, dense jungle, and I was lucky enough I could get a lift back there, and then I had a hill, and I had like a 120s, and I had a 360 and atmosphere and all this, but it was good, and it would push from the side, or it had something way off in the back of the jungle to push behind them, but it would fall off in certain areas. So I'd have an electrician holding like two tubes ganged together at about 20 or 30%, probably like 4 or 5 foot away from the subject, and I'm the camera. This is the subject, I'm the camera, and then he would be off to the left or right. I never put it behind me because that looks ridiculous. So, and I would have them, and they would be walking right there. I would, that's a case where I would use it. Or if I was in some sort of, I don't know, would say like a warehouse, or we were outside at a market, I would have them, art department would rig up some sort of contraption that looks like a fluorescent like housing, but we would put a Astera in that, and we'd chain those, and then we would have all those, like maybe we'd make one flicker, and we'd make one like off ugly green, and one kind of like in the blue spectrum, and one white, or if I wanted to switch it up. So I'd use it also as background stuff, because an anamorphic obviously sort of lights in the background and out of focus, it looks beautiful, and the longer lens you go, the more it does, sort of thing. So I'd use it in that sense. But then there's been cases where I'll set up a shot, and I'll just say, bring me a tube here and bring me one over here. So we'll key with that, we'll backlight with that. I found ways to use lights in the weirdest ways possible that gaffer will look at me and go, what are you doing, man? And I'm just like, well, it works. It's fast, Mm-hmm. So I try to use it, incorporate it into the set, but I also try to use the stairs as a key to like the whole thing, so it's, I've always been, anybody that knows me, I've always been a little crazy, like mad scientist. I'm not afraid to try stuff. Right. I've never been afraid to try stuff. I've never been afraid to like go dark, or, go be edgy, or, wow, you're shooting anamorphics like that. What are you doing? So I like, how are you going to learn? Right. How are you going to learn if you don't try? And that's, if you take that approach and find, obviously find places where you won't get yourself in trouble by doing it, but also just don't be safe, because if you're just safe in this business, it's like, you're not going to go anywhere. You're not going to push yourself. You're always going to rely on your crutch of like, oh, this is what I want to do. So I've just tried to always, do things in a different way. And I think it's worked, for me. I think it's worked pretty well. So having those lights and using those lights the way I have been, yeah, I mean, I just go for it. I mean, I'll send you a couple things. I'll send you some stills. I'll be like, all right, over here I had a stairs here, over there I had that, so you can at least see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that actually brings up two things. The first one, so we can get off tubes, is I actually did one where I put a clamp at the end of a boom pole, and then with like a 3-foot photographic umbrella. So I've got a mobile key. I just have someone Hollywooding. So if you've got like a walk and talk, you just got this one guy with a 3-foot softbox base doing.
And then they make these, I forget what it's called, like a windsock you can stick the Astera into.
The inflatable jammy?
Yeah. Or I don't think it's like made out of muzz or some kind of like, they have them at different ones. But yeah, I've had guys sticking on a C-stand, they'll clamp it, or like a boom pole, and you'll walk. It's almost like the Felipe Russolo of the 80s with his, he was big with gem balls, or Chinese balls. Yeah, China balls, So this is like our renaissance of the Astera tube,
Well, I actually stole the idea from Cronenweth, because there's this behind the scenes still of Brad Pitt on Fight Club when he's on the moving sidewalk in the airport.
Yeah,
and there's literally just a guy with a Kino flow tube above his head, and it shook me to my core, because I was in college. Well, I was in college, and I was like, wait, like I was like a freshman, and I was like, wait a minute, because in my head, if you had to do a big long scene, you had to light the whole scene. It, for whatever reason, it didn't occur to me that the light could just move. No one would know that the light was just moving with you. And I was like, that makes everything so much easier. Like,
yeah. Oh, and the balls of like to shoot at that location, obviously, but they're using a lot of the fixtures that were already there. They're then enhancing that. Yeah, I think Claudio Miranda gaffed Fight Club. I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Jesus.
Yeah, dude, man, Fincher's put some great people out. And there's I remember a specific scene where they're sitting on the corner and the house is in the background. They're like, "Oh, wasn't this fun? We should do it again." They cheer.
Oh yeah, no, that's outside of Sal's. That's outside of here.
So I've always seen the movie, and then you back away and you see like there's a Kino flow hanging right over here, and it's like you're like, oh no, it's that, and it's just there's a backlight this way or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just love that. You just kind of like, well, these guys use the same lights where you. Oh, okay, that's pretty cool. That's how simple that was. So but
that is kind of part of my line of questioning with you and with most people, is like trying to not. I know everyone wants kind of like exact lighting plots for every film, which is informative in many ways, but I think it's just more important to realize that like a lot of those things happen, and then for you to just, like you were saying, try stuff out, like see what works for you. Because I think if you just I think it's important to copy people when you're learning.
Yeah,
because you don't know what you don't know. But then if you're trying to get gigs, and you're like, oh, I need this exact lighting plot from Deacon's website, and then you try to execute, it's not going to work the same. It's not the same,
No, it's not. It's not the same, and that's something I think. This is sort of on the same lines. I remember when I was at AFI, Janusz Kaminski came and was showing us his tests for Amistad. And they were all on film. And he brought them to our class, and they had the projectionists loaded up, and we watched them. And I love his tests because they aren't like a chip chart and a girl with fabric and
right.
I don't get anything out of tests like that. And that works for other people. He basically had a set of like a old colonial type. I think he was actually doing it Universal, and it looked like a scene out of Amistad. And he had, the typical Spielberg Janusz stuff. He had the hard backlight, soft key. He would on the slate. The slates that's where you had to pay attention, because he would say, like, Dior #1, soft classic, soft this, push 1 stop, push 2 stop, 2/8, whatever. All his information was on that slate. So he would see, like, okay, this is +1 stop, this +2 stop, this, and you would see these they were just gorgeous tests, and you got so much out of that. And I remember we were all hit. What stock are you using? I think he was using like 200 tungsten EXR or 200 tungsten. I can't remember what the other stock was.
I do miss the EXR stocks.
Yeah. And I remember, like, well, should I use that stock? Because everybody wanted to do what he did. But I learned very quickly that, like, he's like, well, yeah, you could try that, but what I'm doing may not work for you. And I'm just doing this because I know how that stock works. I like that stock. This is how I like. This is what I want. But it may not work for you. And then that was where I quickly learned that, like, okay, I can aesthetically, light like these guys or grab things from them, but what they're doing may not be what I want. And so that's when I had to learn that, like, okay, you have to figure out what you want to grab from this and then go. To answer your question about, using the lighting plots from Deacons or this or sort of that thing. It's like, yeah, take that, learn from those things, but don't try to do exactly what they do. It's not going to really work for what you do, because you don't do what he does. And, he's not going to do what you do. So it's like, you have to find that blend yourself. So I'm still constantly, if you're constantly a student of this craft, then I think you'll be successful. If you walk around thinking you're the master of this thing, you're not going to last a long time.
Right.
At all.
Well, and I've always said, like, if you steal from one person, that's stealing. If you steal from 3 people, now you're an original. Yeah. If you weave at least 3 people's sort of main ideas, because everyone has their own thing, and then someone's going to look at you and be like, you know what their thing is, and it's whatever they've pulled from you. But you definitely don't want to take. There's a lot of, like, YouTubers where they're like, this is how you film exactly like Fincher, and I'm like, I don't think that's a good idea.
I love those things. Those things make me laugh. You want to learn how to light online? This is how you do it. It's like, sure, buddy. I'm going to keep going.
Tell me your LUTs too. I did want to know the LUTs. Anyway,
I'll keep going. I can go. All right. So quick story. I'm sorry. I know.
Oh yeah.
I saw one of those things. They're like, make the Joker LUT, and Jill Bogdanowicz.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Jill Bogdanowicz is my colorist, and she colored Joker. So I said her, I was like, Jill, you have to see this. It's like, is this the way you did it, right? And she's just like, that's funny. It's pretty. That makes me laugh. I think it's funny.
Yeah, I actually got a hold of her through a friend who was on the podcast, and she agreed to do the podcast. She's going to be my first colorist, but which will just I can't have any more after her. It's going to have to be Sonnenfeld and maybe no one else. But
I'll get to Dave. I'll get you David to come on, man. David's
that'd be sick. I'd love to have I did a lens month that everyone really likes, so colorist month would be fucking cool. But she's obviously Jill Bogdanowicz, so she's busy as shit. But I did want to jump back a little bit to the point about trying things out and always testing. Yeah. It did feel like throughout the 90s and early 2000s to like 2010 maybe, that music videos were where you would do those experiments, because that was
right.
And music videos now don't have a budget, rarely have an artist that that creative playground seems to have passed.
Yeah.
Do you see anything else in the kind of creative space? Feels icky to say, but anyway, anything in the sort of that mimics that area, or does everyone just kind of have to do it themselves and work with what they've got?
Now, yeah, I mean, I was very fortunate enough to have that experimenting time in my music video days.
Well, and you could add those music videos to your reel and be like, check this shit out. Because music videos used to be huge.
Yeah, they used to be big. I mean, I was on the tail end of when they were still big, and then I watched them just completely go, Yeah, you know, if you can have time to like test things now, it's good. Which you hardly ever do. Now I try to just, get a little bit of like, all right, I want to try this and see what happens on a scene. And I've been lucky lately to do it, and sometimes it works, and sometimes you're like, nah, that kind of worked, but whatever. But most of the time, I've been very fortunate and something works. So that's been my sort of little test pattern now, is just trying things on set, which, I'll talk about it extensively with the gaffer. All right, we're going to try this. We're going to try this. We're going to try this when we're leading up to it. And then it ends up working, and it works out great. And then when it kind of works, if I see it right off the bat, off the first or second day, I'm like, yeah, that's not, just stop that. We're not going to do that. I just cut the kibosh off. I don't try to keep pushing it.
Sure.
You'll know within minutes, or once you put the camera up and you're looking at it and you're just like, yeah, that didn't work. We're gonna, all right, we tried. It's not gonna work. Let's just do this. I always have a backup plan for it ready to go. This is my gaffer. I would be like, if that doesn't work, we'll just go to this, but just be ready. Okay. So there you go.
The safety setup. I think everyone probably has a safety setup. I played drums, and there's always like, someone will always do like a pocket like lick that they just have. For me, for whatever reason, it was always the disco beat that, like, if I was just bored, it would just kick into disco beats, or like these two licks from Queens of the Stone Age. I feel like everyone has,
they got the backup thing. I was like, I can use this.
Yeah.
Go back to that.
Big light here, scratch here, go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it's yeah, I mean, it's harder now because, I don't really do videos anymore. The funny thing is, I would love to. I would love to do one. I haven't done one in a while. The last one I did was in 2019. I did one for a group called Asking Alexandra. It was like a 7-minute long zombie-inspired thing. It was pretty cool. It was fun. It was longer, because it had a lot of narrative to it.
So actually, this just reminded me of something, and I know I got to let you go here soon, but
I can go as long as you want, man. I have no time.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But so again, this is a different Oppenheimer thread that I saw on the internet, where this guy was a YouTube video where this, again, just like I feel like a lot of these creators do enough research to say things that are correct, but then get themselves in trouble by trying to ad lib.
Right.
And so this guy was saying that, like, oh, this is, again, giving Nolan a little too much credit when it comes to film. This whole thing was shot on 65 film. It's never happened before. And I found out that Adele shot a music video in 65 millimeter IMAX black and white like 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's right. It's funny. I was like, that came up somewhere recently. Yeah. I know I love these guys where they find these things, these facts or whatever, but I don't know where that came up. Like, I was reading about that not too long ago. And it was a black and white video. It was gorgeous. And it was shot 55. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. I think there was something else too that did that. I can't remember what else, but yeah, I mean, hey,
looking up who shot it, because I think I know who shot it.
The Adele video.
Yeah,
I would be very curious to know who it is. Actually,
is it? Oh my God, was that what it was? No, Someone Like You.
Someone Like You. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, it was one of the big ones.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big one. That's wrong.
Oh, come on. This is taking too long. Someone Like You, Adele song.
Yeah.
Who was the cinematographer
Of the video. It was funny thing. I was watching that the Beatles Get Back documentary, the one that
Oh yeah.
with who was the Peter Jackson. Probably was going to say Phil Jackson. I was thinking about the Bulls.
Think about Air.
Yeah. I was thinking about Air and the Last Dance and all that. But yeah, there's a whole bit because they're trying to get the record done and they're making this documentary and they're like, oh well, maybe we're going to take all this footage and make a feature out of it. He's like, well, if we're shot it on 16, and I don't know if the quality is going to be good if they blow it up, which is like, this is hilarious. This is like 1969, right? And they're talking about whether like, well, maybe if we shot at 35, it'd look good. There's like a whole discussion of like the Beatles talking about film stocks and like blowing things up. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. But little did they know now, they took that 16 footage, scanned it to 4K, blew it up, and it looks gorgeous.
There's
funny,
I still haven't seen A Hard Day's Night, which I know makes me a bad filmmaker. But
well, I've never seen it here, so don't feel bad.
But I will say,
you got to be in the mood to see something like that. It's a acquired sort of thing.
Yeah, but I will say that like I am loving in the past like 5-10 years the number of companies, Criterion obviously leading the way,
Sure.
Arrow,
Sure.
even just CBS did a few, where they will find the original camera negatives, scan them pristine as shit, and re-release it on Blu-ray because it's fascinating. Like the one that I always tell people is the re-release of The Twilight Zone on Blu-ray. They went in, rescanned all of the negatives, and it looks like it was. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, yeah.
It looks like it was shot yesterday.
Correct, and then that's just because film, man. I mean, it's the best archival material you can use for that. That's why Scorsese is so diehard on preserving films. You keep the negs stored in a place where they it's already properly climate controlled and all that stuff. You could pop that thing out, scan it, clean it up, and they look gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous, and that's a great example of where technology and the past come together to make something magic. And like I love when they restore old movies too. Like I know they re-released Jaws a few years ago. They rescanned the egg, and it's pristine. It looks gorgeous, man.
I just rewatched Gentlemen Prefer Blondes.
Yeah,
and that was a Criterion rescan, and same thing. I mean, like you obviously the what do you call it? The Paramount style lighting that very gives it away, but like it's still it's crazy how clean it looks. Everyone's memory of all these films is like a shit telecine that they saw on a terrible TV
on TNT pan and scan probably.
Yeah, and then you get it back in like high def, and also rescanning Technicolor has just got to be the most bonkers because it's not like a projection that they scan. They scanned like all three negatives and have to sync them and shit, and it's just gotta be so much work. But it's so
I don't know how. I don't know. That whole process is great. And then speaking of that other company you were talking about, Arrow is like. They're getting up there with Criterion, man. I like the films that they're picking. I like what they're doing.
I got their RoboCop.
Oh yeah, man. And the True Romance. They just did this huge, like it hasn't come out. I'm kind of like two of my friends are steelbook junkies. He sent me a whole bunch of steelbooks of like all my favorite movies of all he had them all overseas. You can't get any of this stuff, and they just put the stuff they put in these box sets is incredible.
Yeah,
and I still love physical media. That's just I like that.
Oh, I got to send you photos of my shelf.
I'd love to see that. That's good. Please do. But they, like Arrow's going after it, man. I mean, I love that. I love the whole, archiving of movies and. Because you got to remember, man, once it's out of the theater, it's like it has its other life. And if you don't get the transfer right, and if it's not done properly, then people are always going to be like, people like us, the purists, are like, well, that version doesn't look right. Or this, it's like 7. Like I said, there's like 5 or 6 different versions of 7 floating around there. And so I think Fincher said not too long, I think at Tribeca, he said, I'm remastering 7 4K. I'm going to go back to the neg. We're going to do it right. All that.
Stephen Nakamura, that's a colorist.
Yes, yes. Who is a great human being. Know him well. He's a great guy. He was great, and I think that I'm excited to see what he does. I hope he, I hope he goes back to the original look, the pure look, or doesn't go to the cyan
Right.
way. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
That just pinged off so many things at once for me. One perfect example of a bummer is there was this TV show called 7 Days that they used to do reruns on Spike, and it was just this great, somewhat campy sci-fi show.
Right.
And I wanted DVD of it for years and years and years. It played when I was, in the 90s, and they never, and then like 2 years ago, randomly, CBS goes, "Oh yeah, we released that on DVD now." It's like, what? And I like took a photo and I tagged all the actors in it, and all the actors like liked it and followed me back on Instagram. They're like, "You're the only person to buy that fucking thing," and but it's a TV scan, so you still get like the the little encoding bars in the top and bottom and the whole thing.
Right.
It's like it's directly from. They didn't rescan shit.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, they probably just found some tapes and like.
I'll ask my my guru guy in my little forum. I'll see if he may have something. He'll be like, "Oh yeah, I've got the archives." You never know. I'll
Okay.
find out for you.
That would be great, because that show was really fun. It had Jonathan LaPaglia in it, the guy who now hosts Australian Survivor.
That's hilarious.
But he played well, I'll let you. The podcast doesn't need to be me explaining the plot in 7 days.
I don't care.
But it was that, and then the physical media thing. So the other issue with it gets new life on physical media is, one, you get the bonus of like, oh, movies like Fight Club, for instance, or Mallrats comes to mind, or any of these films that kind of didn't do well theatrically,
Right.
yeah, at least historically, yeah. But the weird thing now is streamers are just really taking the hack that whatever, taking a scythe to things. Disney put out a movie. I just read this today. Disney put out a movie called like Crater, and they released it like 3-4 weeks ago, and they've already removed it.
Wow.
It didn't do well on like Disney Plus. It was made for Disney Plus,
Right.
and it was like a kids movie, and
you'll never see it again.
And we're never going to see it again.
They'll never put it out on physical media. But though I did read that Bob Iger really wants to get the physical media going back at Disney.
Good.
Now,
I need to bring back the vault, the old.
Yeah, they need to bring back the vault, and they need to hire some of these Arrow people and Criterion people to take care of their movies, because let's just be honest, man, their restoration stuff's they don't have the greatest people over there, and that's no notch to them. I just think they're such a large corporation that like they don't think to hire like the best. You're Disney. You've got a massive catalog now of 20th Century Fox and Touchstone and God knows what, all the Star Wars and
Lucasfilm, man.
Yeah, Lucasfilm. You've acquired important titles. Then they need to look the way they need to look. So, yeah, I mean, I hope that whatever they do, I hope they do it right. And that's all I ever want to see is like a properly done version of a film.
Well, and like you were saying, there's so many versions. Like Men in Black is one of my favorite films of all time. Like top 4 Letterboxd.
Yeah.
There's there is a 4K Blu-ray, but I had to go on like Blu-ray.com and look at the reviews and go, okay, this SKU is the one that actually has the good transfer, because this one, like Terminator 2 and I think Total Recall, the 4K Blu-rays, unfortunately for Schwarzenegger, look like shit. You can't just buy the 4K assuming it's going to look better. Because sometimes the same thing with The Matrix. The Matrix has 100 different color passes.
Oh, God. They did one where it was like all weird green, and then there was like, I don't know what happens with those movies. Like I know I got a Terminator 2 download off of Apple, and it was They added more cyan into it, which
Did it look real waxy? Because that would be the
they
4K
didn't look
version.
like that, because that was Cameron was more on the blues and the, more of like almost a desaturated feel of that movie. You just can't just all of a sudden just go, oh, let's just add modern color to this. It just doesn't work,
It needs to be preservation, not like
not, super new
polishing.
polish. Yeah, it's like, oh, this looks cool. No.
Sound of Music would look a lot better if it had teal shadows.
Exactly, the whole way. Yeah, let's just add modern colors to this stuff and make it not even look anything the way it looked like back then.
These shots should be warp stabilized.
Mm-hmm. Gosh. God, we it's I just think that stuff's important.
Same.
The movie's gonna live in a physical form or wherever digital. It's gotta look the way it looked like when it was put out.
Well, and luckily, like Blu-ray, but even 4K Blu-ray, like it doesn't need to be. The jump from VHS to DVD was obviously huge. The jump from DVD to Blu-ray was huge again. But Blu-ray to 4K, we're now hitting diminishing returns, and I feel like if we can at least find a way to make sure that those discs don't degrade appreciably over, let's say, 100 years, which I know it's like that's not very environmentally friendly, but for Blu-rays, we'll get the special plastic. I think we'll be in good shape. We don't need to invent a new, Laserdisc 2 to like make this happen.
I mean, like if they start coming out the next thing, it's like, oh, we're gonna have 8K Blu-rays. I'm just like,
shut up. Yeah.
Stop. I don't want to get a whole new catalog of movies, man. I'm fine with the way they are now. It's like, please, no more.
That's the other nice thing about 4K Blu-rays. They're not region locked.
Yeah.
Regular Blu-rays are, which kind of sucks, but
yeah,
whatever.
The 4K ones are not, which is good. So. But yeah.
Well, I'm gonna let you go because I didn't eat. So, but
that's all right.
We'll definitely keep in touch, obviously, and then I'd love to have you back on when the next film comes out, and then we can talk about that in specificity versus just the shooting shit. Although shooting the shit's kind of fun. I don't get any
I have
shoot the shit pods.
No, I love shoot the shit pods. It's good. I have Land of Grace, which I just finished. Year 2, which is the werewolf movie I did with Steven, which I'm finding out whether or not when that's supposed to, there's a whole distribution thing they want to get in the theaters, all that. I've got to color that movie. So it's either going to come out the end of this year or the beginning of next year. And then I have a horror movie I have to color, and then I have a drama I have to color. So I have 4 movies in post that I'm just waiting to just finish them.
Well, with the strike, at least they're in post.
Yes. So
take your time on them.
True. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, dude, it's just a blast. I totally enjoyed it.
Frame and Reference is an Owlbot production. It's produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan, and distributed by ProVideo Coalition. As this is an independently funded podcast, we rely on support from listeners like you. So if you'd like to help, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/frameandrefpod. We really appreciate your support, and as always, thanks for listening.